Good morning and welcome to my kitchen. I have got another 2 delicious recipes for you. I cannot wait to share them. So first of all, we're going to make a beautiful pasta dish. We're going to make a basil cream pappardelle dish. But not only that, we're going to top it with some beautiful garlicky, chili, crispy breadcrumbs. So not only is it vegetarian, but it is absolutely packed full of flavour. It will be a crowd pleaser, I promise. And following that, we're going to make a delicious frangipane. So I'll show you how to make amazing short crust pastry, spread the bottom with some delicious jam, make an almond sponge, so there's where the frangipane comes in, and then we're going to stud it with some beautiful local summer raspberries. It will be delicious. Now, first thing we need to do is make an amazing pastry, and here's how you do it. That's how you make an amazing pastry, and the most important thing I can share with you is make sure that you rest your pastry in the fridge in between each stage. So once you've rolled it and you have a ball of dough like this, put it in the fridge, let it rest for 10 minutes, then bring it out and then we'll line it. Now I'm using a Masterclass Crusty Bake tin here. And it's full of perforated holes, which means you don't need to blind bake this. You can bake it straight away. These are brilliant, they're non-stick, and you absolutely do not get a soggy bottom. Right. You look like you're going to ask me something there, Emily. Go on. What's on your mind?
Your pastry. Does it need to be freshly made, or can it be made in advance? Or can
you can make pastry in advance. You can rest it overnight. That's no problem at all. You can freeze short crust pastry. No problem. It's just important to rest it in between each stage. So all I'm doing is starting with the shape I want to finish with. So I've got a round tin. I'm starting with a round dough. And I'm just shaping it with my fingers, pushing it out almost like a pizza base really, and just getting it ready to roll. So, good heavy rolling pin. Now when you're rolling, it's important that you don't put all your weight on it and then push it. Just use lots of light rolls and then turn it from 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock and then roll it again. Your hiccups have gone.
No.
Emily's been very worried before we switched the cameras on because she had hiccups. The minute the cameras are on, they've gone. It's that amazing cup of tea I've made her.
Absolutely.
Stunning cup of tea. One of my best, that one, I like to think.
Oh, no, but...
It's as good as it gets, basically. So, keep rolling and then turn. We want it about 1/2 centimetre thick. There we go. And that's oversized. That's way more than I need. But you can always take the trimmings and make little jam tarts for the kids. Is always a good one. You can make, you know, cheese straws. You can put it back into the fridge and use it for something else. So I've folded it in half and I'm just laying it in. And when you lay it in, kind of close it into the middle and gently sort of place it in so it has a fighting chance of getting into all the corners. What you don't want to be doing is stretching the pastry into the corners. You want to lift it and tuck it in, okay? That way we don't end up with any weak spots. So lift it and just tuck it in. A lot of people have problems with pastry and they think they can't do it. But if you just spend the time, rest the dough between each stage, use the lightest of touch, and just try not to stretch the pastry. Just try to manipulate it and move it into the places you want it. There we go. And then just put your hand in and open your fingers out a little bit and just push it into those corners. And then with my thumb, I'm just encouraging it. Have you had a frangipane before, Carlos?
I don't think so.
We've done a lot of firsts for you on this programme, haven't we?
Yeah, that's good.
Going home next week, you're going to take a few recipes with you.
I should. I'm going to be out every day then. Spanish style.
Okay, so just running my fingers around, just pressing it. Okay, I'm now going to just pop this back in the fridge again until I'm ready to fill it. Okay, while the pastry's resting in the fridge, it's time to make the filling. So, I have got some room temperature butter here, and I'm going to use a silicone flexible spoon because it just means that I can beat it a little bit better. And if you want to, you can chuck it in the food processor or the mixer if you want to. It's not a problem at all. So, this mixing bowl's got handles, so it's pretty useful. So, use the back of the spoon. There we go. And now, this recipe is pretty much like a Victoria sponge in that it's equal amounts. So, I've got 250 grams of butter, room temperature. Really important because you want to amalgamate the sugar and the butter together into one texture. So when we're creaming it, that's what we're trying to do. If you can hear, there's like a scratching sound. Once that sound stops, that's when the butter and the sugar have kind of amalgamated into one texture. Okay? There we go. Right, now eggs. Room temperature eggs. Now, eggs are an elasticity in baking, so it's important that you use room temperature eggs when you're baking. So we've got 4 free-range eggs. I'm going to add each one at a time. Because if you don't, it will split and curdle. And what we're trying to do is create a texture that will hold all the almonds and the flavour and the lemon and a tiny little bit of self-raising flour. Okay? So your mum's gluten-free, isn't she, Emily?
She is.
Do you...
I think she likes things like this. So
Yeah.
something that we
So this is really low on the flour. I put a tiny little bit of flour in at the end, but it's not for gluten. So if you use a gluten-free flour, it will do exactly the same job. It just sometimes almonds are a little bit too rich and oily, and it tends to, the final bake can be a bit greasy if you're not careful.
Yeah.
So we just add 50 grams of flour and take 50 out of the recipe.
Yeah.
So it's still a square recipe on like 250 grams of each, or 8 ounces in old money.
If you were allergic to, somebody might be allergic to almonds, is it something that you can you replace the almonds just with the flour?
Yeah, because it's a Victoria sponge.
Make the cake mix.
Yeah, it's a Vicky sponge.
A Vicky sponge.
So in with the 3rd egg. Yeah, I mean, and you can just kind of enjoy it that way instead. You don't have to do the almonds if you don't want to. It's not the same thing, but you know, you still enjoy it. So, final egg, and you can see this mixture has maintained. It's not split, it's just kind of kept its texture, it's held the eggs in, and that's because we've amalgamated the butter and the sugar together.
How do you rescue that if it does split? How do you rescue it?
The flour will, usually that tiny little bit of flour at the end will rescue it, and just the flour, it's a starch, and it'll swell and it'll absorb and just sort of bring it all together if you get to that stage.
Yeah.
So I've got my 4 eggs, I've got my butter, and I've got my sugar in there. Okay, so now all I'm going to do is take my ground almonds. They're going to go in. I'm going to take a little bit of flour, and that's going to go in. I'm not going to stir it yet until everything is in then. And then I'm just going to grab a grater and just zest the lemons in.
Is there any other flavours that you could add to this?
Lime's really good. Orange, lemon. It kind of, for me, lemon and lime and orange all work really well with raspberry. So take your pick, really. Just works really nicely. Raspberries are bang in season in the UK at the moment. We're up in the Lake District, so down the Eden Valley, near Salkeld, is where all the lovely raspberries grow. It's amazing. They've still got pick your own down there, which is nice. But we've got wild raspberries growing. We've got tayberries growing in the garden. So they're all there, and it will very soon be blackberry season. So I've got some amazing blackberry recipes coming. Right. Okay, so lemon for fragrance.
can smell the lemon.
Yeah, I love lemons. I use them all the time with things. Like zest will give you the fragrance of lemon and the juice will give you the acidity. So depending on what you're trying to do would depend on whether you use zest or juice. Okay, so we want fragrance in here because the acidity would pull the bake down and force it to not bake as evenly and wouldn't rise as nicely. So that's it. That is our frangipane. And actually this will sit in a fridge if you don't use it all straight away. So you can make some little frangipane bites or anything like that. You could get little tins and just pop them in. So let's put that to one side. We'll get our pastry. Okay, so the pastry's just had that little bit of time to rest, which is important. Not long. And if you're really short on time, whack it in the freezer for 5 minutes. So I've got some nice jam here. You don't have to put this in, but I think a layer of jam on the bottom really helps cut the richness of the almond sponge. Okay. You could do lemon curd ones as well. They'd be nice. And if you wanted to go chocolate, Nutella would be really nice. And maybe hazelnuts into it. And you could put a touch of cocoa powder into your sponge. Be really nice, that. Don't tell Thomas I didn't do that. He'd be gutted. That'd be right up his street. So, jam straight in the bottom and on with our frangipane. And because it's nice room temperature, it's easy to push to the edges. And basically, we've got to hide the jam. All right? That's the job. Because otherwise, the jam will spurt out the sides. And we're just trying to get it hidden away at the bottom so nobody knows it's there until you tuck into it. All right, there's a little dip in the middle there, so I'm just going to get the last of it. There we go. Perfect. Now, this won't rise loads because there's not a lot of self-raising flour, so there's not a huge lift in there. So don't be afraid to fill it just sort of about 1 centimetre from the top. Right, I'm just going to trim this pastry now. Now, we don't trim it until it's full because we don't want it to shrink back. And by chilling it in the fridge, it will help it stop from shrinking back. Use the back of your knife, don't use the blade, and just push it away. So start in the middle and do that. Okay, we see that right, Emily?
Yeah.
Don't be hesitant when you do this. If you're hesitant, it doesn't work. It's got to be a quick, fluid motion. Okay, take that pastry away and we will use this. I will use it for some jam tarts for the kids, I should imagine, because they do love them. Now, fresh raspberries. Let's pop that there. Can we see that all right there?
We can.
We can? Good. So nice fresh raspberries. If you haven't got fresh, use frozen and they will push in beautifully. So, one at 6 o'clock, one at 12 o'clock. Now, I read an article in the paper about how people do this. It says a lot about a person, how they go around the clock face. Oh. Whether they do it like, I do it like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But some people just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
No precision.
But I'm more of a, I don't know what it says about me. Who knows? So just plonk them in and just push them under the surface a little bit. But you want to see them, that's okay. We'll pop that in there. You could do blueberries and lemon curd on this, Emily. That'd be a nice combination.
Yeah, that would be really good.
Really good, wouldn't it? Okay, last one in the...
You just got to be careful what fruit you would use in the sponge.
Yeah. You'd think strawberries would be really nice, but they don't really work when you cook a strawberry. They go a bit weird. I don't know what it is. Right. Oh, they're nice, them raspberries. Right. This is going to go in the oven 170 degrees. It's probably going to take about 45 minutes in my oven, but you need to make sure your pastry is cooked, your sponge has risen, and it just looks golden and delicious. Right, okay, so my frangipane is in the oven. It is time to turn my attention to the pasta dish. Now this is done in 2 stages. So first of all, we're going to do the really nice crispy breadcrumbs. And these are well worth doing in advance so that you can just keep them. And every time you want a quick main course, you've got them, okay? So, in Italy, if you can't afford parmesan, you would do this. And the translation is poor man's parmesan. But it may be a poor man's parmesan. The flavors are incredible, and you really do want to sort of give a good hit of flavor, because it's a little bit like a carbonara dish, this, but we're not using any smoked bacon or pancetta. So you need it to be gutsy and full of flavor, okay? So I've got a non-stick tray here. I've got a baguette, like a half baguette, that's seen better days. And all I'm gonna do is just chop it up, okay?
Can you use any type of bread for this? Is it
Yeah.
stale or?
Well, it's just a great opportunity to use up some stale bread, because we all end up with a bit left over, don't we? So, you know, the crusts, you know, a ciabatta is amazing. Or, you know, if you have a garlic bread for tea one night and nobody eats the crusts, chuck them in a bag and put them in the freezer, and they'll build up, and then eventually you will have some epic poor man's parmesan. So I'm just gonna run my knife through this. Now, the smaller you chop them, the crispier and quicker they will become. Okay, so if you like big chunks, tear them up. That's absolutely fine. All right? So pop that on there. And then the last little bit here. Like the sound of this dish, do you? Yeah?
Yeah.
I love
Breadcrumbs and garlic and whatever.
carbs and carbs, isn't it?
Yeah. It's all a good match.
Well, the idea behind this is kind of like, you know, it wants to be lovely and creamy, but I didn't want to add cream, so I went down the carbonara route, but I didn't want to put bacon in it. And I felt it would just be a little bit too rich without the bacon, because it kind of, that salty, crispy bacon is delicious, but it kind of, yeah, it kind of punches through it. And I mean, I do love pasta dishes, and I get asked this all the time, what's my favourite thing to cook, and I always struggle to answer it, and I wonder whether it is just pasta dishes. You know, as a family, we love pasta. We spent loads of time in Italy and learned loads about it, and I think it's probably my favourite thing to do. So, garlic cloves. Use the back of your knife, okay? And then just use the palm of your hand there and just pop it. Just one little hit, lift your hand up really quick, get it out of the way. And then that is the easiest way to unwrap and unpeel a clove of garlic. So if any of you have any questions at all about these recipes from this week's episode, please post them in the messages below and I will answer them as quickly as I can. The recipes will be located on masterclass.co. Now, if you scan the code below now with your phone, so just stick your camera on, put me on pause and scan this code that you can see along here, you will then be taken straight to masterclass.co's recipe page, and you'll find all our recipes there. There's loads of info there. Okay, so 2 cloves of garlic, chopped up nicely. There we go. And then in with the bread. And then chili is optional. If you don't like heat, don't put it in. But I want to create something really gutsy and punchy that just kind of counters and cuts through the richness of the pasta. Okay, so, and fresh chilies, I don't think fresh chili's that hot. Chili powder is very aggressive, and chili flakes can be quite hot, so.
Just taking my question.
Have I stole your question? I do that a lot, don't I?
Yeah.
We spend too much time together in this studio. Way too much time. But never mind. Yeah, I have a thing about dried chili powder. I just think it's awful. It's just aggressive heat, whereas fresh chili's got almost a fruitiness to it, I think.
Yeah.
And it just works. If I pop that on there, can we see that all right?
We can.
Yeah. So I'm just going to mix the chili and the garlic and the breadcrumbs together. Okay. And then get some extra virgin olive oil and drizzle it, probably 2 or 3 tablespoons on this. And then a little tip for you. Now, a lot of people will just go, just whack that in the oven until it's crispy. Don't. Scrunch it like that. Okay? and get all the flavour and get the breadcrumbs soaking up and really work it through your hands like that and really beat it up basically and get all the flavours going. Okay? Now you could add some herbs into this as well if you want. Chuck a load of rosemary in there, you know, a bit of thyme, bit of sage, be lovely. And then just spread it all out. Now, if you smell that, Emily, just have a smell of that. How much flavour is in there? It's big, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's gutsy. And that's what we want. We want this to cut right through the pasta. I'm going to pop this into the oven now. It's probably going to take about 10 to 12 minutes till it's really nice and crispy because it needs to have that contrast of textures from the pasta. Right, my breadcrumbs are in the oven. The kitchen smells amazing. It's this garlicky, chili, olive oil. It's just the best combination. It's delicious. Right, I've got my pasta pan on here, boiling away, loads of water, salt, a couple of tablespoons. It wants to be nice and salty, the water. Now, to make pappardelle pasta, you don't really get pappardelle in the supermarkets much. And it's thick ribbons. So you get linguine, you get tagliatelle, and then you get pappardelle. So pappardelle is like 2 or 3 times as thick as tagliatelle. So what I tend to do is just buy sheets of fresh lasagne from the supermarket and remove the layers of plastic between them.
Could you make your own for this?
Yeah, totally. You can make, if you're making your own pappardelle and you've got the pasta machine out, you just make big sheets. You roll them back up and then slice them into pappardelle ribbons. It's lovely. It's just I mean, we used to go to Tuscany a lot, and pappardelle is very popular in Tuscany. And that's kind of where we got it from, really. So I've got my sheets there. And then, can we see this nicely, Emily? Yeah?
Yeah.
So if I was doing sort of linguine, it'd be like that. And then tagliatelle like that, about 1 centimetre. But you want about 2 centimetre thick ribbons, okay? And because this is fresh pasta, it like literally takes a minute to cook, all right? Please don't cook it any longer than that because it will just completely overcook. And then, look, now we've got loads of pappardelle, okay? So I'm just going to put that to one side because, as I said before, this cooks really quickly, so don't be tempted to put it in now. Let's make an amazing sauce first. So I have got a pan on getting nice and warm. So splash of extra virgin olive oil in there will do. And then we're going to make kind of a carbonara style sauce. It's not totally, so don't freak out any Italians, all right? So I've got some butter here. And that is going to go in there and melt together. And the job for us is to amalgamate that together. And we're just going to add a little bit of flavour. So we're going to add some garlic, because we love garlic. Okay, so crushed clove of garlic. In it goes. We'll just give that a little chop into nice little slices. Use a crusher if you wanted to. That's okay, or you could grate it in. There we go. Let's get some power into there. Right, now, what we need to do is get our egg yolks ready. So, add a little bit of black pepper into there. No salt, because I've got salted butter, and I've got salted boiling water in here. Oh, that's the sound we like. We like that sound, don't we, Emily? It means it's nearly time to eat. So, here we go, nice. So what's happening is the olive oil and the butter together will not burn, okay? If you put butter in on its own, it will burn, okay? So, melting together nicely. What I'm going to do is now separate my eggs, and it's the yolks that I'm interested in today, not the whites. But we will keep the whites for something else. Let me just pop these into a little container so that they can go straight in. These are lovely looking eggs, these ones.
Does the size of the egg matter?
No, not for cooking. It's sort of baking, really.
Okay.
But I mean, I always make sure my eggs are at room temperature when I'm using them. We do keep them in the fridge normally, and I think there's a bit of a big thing about like eggs. Like in America, you're told to keep your eggs in the fridge all the time, but in this country, in the UK, we don't. And it really is about the elasticity. So they are far more elastic when they're at room temperature than when they're cold. So for this case, the yolks are all about a lovely creamy richness that we're trying to achieve. Okay, without cream, because it tends to mask it.
Yeah.
Okay, right, all right, so let's have a little think. We've got our parmesan, so we are now time to put our pasta in. So, boiling water, salted, in it goes. I've got a pasta basket here as well, which is brilliant for a couple of things. That will not take long at all, okay? Okay, so plenty of parmesan cheese. Of course, it's lovely. Ready to
The
go.
more parmesan, the better.
Hey?
The more parmesan.
Oh, I know, it's delish. I'll eat parmesan just as it is. Love it. Right, so, can we see this now? You can see the butter and the garlic and the olive oil have melted together. What we're going to try and do is get some of the starch from this pasta in there, like that. Can you see that?
Yep.
Carlos hates it when I do all the banging and things. Right, in with our parmesan. In with our egg yolks. Now, you've got to work quickly now because what we don't want to do is create custard. Okay? So there is our sauce. All right, pasta almost ready. In it goes. So there, we've got a lovely, creamy pasta sauce now. Okay? I'm going to turn the heat off. Doesn't need any more heat at all now, that. I'm going to whip that off. Oh, lovely. That looks good. Really good. Right. So, let's just get a little bit tidy, get our breadcrumbs out, and I will show you how amazing this pasta dish is. Okay. Fresh basil. Right at the very end. We never use fresh basil until the end of a dish or a recipe, okay? Because otherwise you will lose everything that basil is all about. It's fresh and fragrant, okay? And if I just pop that in there now, you will really benefit from all the flavour. If you put it in the middle, you just lose it and it just becomes a sort of nondescript pasta dish. And the herbs just gone. So, on with our pasta there.
That looks and smells amazing.
It's very simple. You know, it's like all good Italian food. It's just simple and clean. And it's all about a few flavours. Okay? So we'll pop that on there, we'll get rid of that. Let's go and check out our breadcrumbs because that's where we're going to take this dish from one level to the next. All right? My breadcrumbs. Now listen to this. Nice and crispy. All right? That's what you want. Nice, crispy breadcrumbs. Full of flavour. Just scatter them on right at the last minute, or even just put them on the table and let everyone have a little tuck in when they get there. So, there we go. Let's pop those on there. And I like to finish my pasta just with a tiny little bit of extra virgin olive oil. So you really taste the olive oil, okay? You don't want to cook with extra virgin olive oil too much because you lose the flavour. But if you want to taste it, make sure you put it on at the very end. And then if you fancy it, which I know Emily does, that tiny little bit of extra parmesan at the end. And there you go. That is how to make a beautiful pappardelle dish with a creamy parmesan sauce, fresh basil, and poor man's parmesan breadcrumbs. Okay, the frangipane smells amazing. There you go. It is baked beautifully. And because we've used the crusty bake, all the air has got through, so all the moisture has escaped, and it's made sure we do not have a soggy bottom. But what we do have is a delicious frangipane flavoured with lemon and almond, and then we've got fresh raspberries studded throughout, some lovely jam. It is a delicious dessert, pudding or snack. But look, if you want all the recipes, go to masterclass.co or scan the QR code along the bottom with your phone. It'll take you straight to the website with all the recipes. Thank you very much for joining us. I really hope you have an amazing weekend. Make sure you cook these dishes, and please, if you do cook them, send us a picture. I'd love to see how you get on. I mean, it's such a simple couple of recipes, but packed full of flavour. Thank you very much, and I will see you soon.